them.
Welcome back to Passing Time with Craig. As always, I'm your host, Craig. I've got a wonderful guest today, Trevor Solway. We got lots to talk about with him. His new documentary is out now. But before we get to that, happy June, everybody. Can't believe it's June already. Where is the time going? I've already had a request for a Christmas party in December and planning Pat's night in October. So I don't know where time is going, but it doesn't make sense how fast things go. But National Indigenous History Month here in Canada, and of course it's also Pride Month. Happy Pride Month to all my fellow members of the 2S LGBTQIA plus community. I know it can be a scary, tough time for everyone, but let's keep celebrating and be happy and excited. We've got some great Pride-related episodes as well coming out. And if you're here in Calgary, I've got my first ever Heated Rivalry game night planned for June 25th at Born Brewing. You do not want to miss it. I've got some fun things planned. Stay tuned for more details about that. We're going to also have some great guests on to talk about Pride this month. And if you're in the area, of course, all my trivia nights, Name That Tune, I will be having some related questions to not only Pride Month, but National Indigenous History Month as well. And for losers like me, it's also Jurassic June. So, it's a great month to celebrate Jurassic Park and Jurassic World franchise. And that's what I will always be doing. So, yeah, I got some fun things planned. I'm excited for summer. I've got some great things working on behind the scenes that I'm hoping to have come out starting in June, if not July. Some additions to the Passing Time with Craig world, which I'm very excited about. So, as always, I just want to thank you all for being there for me, supporting me, following me on social media, all that fun stuff. But today, we are talking with Sinakson Trevor Solway, filmmaker extraordinaire from the Blackfoot community. New film, Siksikakowan, the Blackfoot Man documentary, available on National Film Board of Canada's platforms for free. So you can go to nfb.ca or their YouTube page to watch this documentary. Fantastic film. Basically just navigating identity, kinship, and complex expectations of manhood. Whether you're Indigenous or not, important film. Whether you're male identifying or not, important film. Just a little bit different. So we're going to talk about how his documentary is different than, a lot of the ones. No talking heads or big, long interviews like that. How he came up with this idea, how he got into filmmaking. He is an extraordinary gentleman who has had this film specifically has won tons of awards doing the film festival circuit and sold out screenings. So go check this out. But right now, please enjoy my conversation with the wonderful Trevor Solway. We have so much to talk about, and I know your time's limited, so I want to dive into it. We've got your film, but I kind of want to start off with how you got into it, because I know, how you got into filmmaking, because I know you did the Independent Indigenous Digital Filmmaking Program back in 2012. Before that, were you that person always with a camera? Were you always coming up with ideas? When did this spark for you that you wanted to be in the filmmaking industry?
Yeah, I think just growing up in Siksika, I always felt like I was raised on stories.
Yeah.
My grandpa Sonny was an Indian cowboy on Siksika, and I grew up on his ranch and very closely with him. And he always had time for a good story. And, I think in his own way, he was a storyteller. And so just growing up close with a person like that and hearing stories of your people, of his life and of the land, and then being able to step out your front door and seeing evidence of these stories. I think it always cultivated my creativity and curiosity in a way that I couldn't explain. But I also, growing up in the 90s, there wasn't a whole lot of Indigenous representation in film and television, and so I didn't even know that was a career path for me.
Yeah.
I always kind of thought it was like a pipe dream. And so, I didn't have to walk around the camera. I didn't, think that was a possibility. But I was always like writing. I used to always write a lot of short stories as a kid. Um, and would always like tell a lot of stories. And so, but I always felt this pull towards this lifestyle and this career. And so, when I was, I think I was 20 at the time, and I moved out to Vancouver for that program.
Hmm.
Like, that was the first kind of stepping stone for me to dive into filmmaking.
And then you're doing this program, and then of course you eventually Mount Royal University. Like when you finally took that path, was it just all aligning and making sense to you? Like this was what I was put here to do.
Yeah, I'm really grateful that I went to school too. Like, I think a lot of people say you don't have to go to school to learn filmmaking,
This is this is an industry where that's often the case. Some half the people gone and half have never gone.
yeah, and and I believe that too. You don't have to go to school. But for me, in my situation, it worked out, and I'm somebody who likes to learn and like hit the books and write and all that kind of stuff. That's my jam, and so I'm thankful that I took that time, especially in my early 20s, to really learn and grow up and to like mature and just learn all those like I guess like professional like uh I don't know, like skills, like how to reply to your email, how to write a proposal. And so yeah, and also coming back from Vancouver, like I think when I went out to that program, I thought I was gonna go to like LA or Hollywood.
Yeah.
But I also felt, very homesick being away from Alberta. And so I wanted to, come back and base my career out of Siksika and on the prairies. And so, when I came back here and I got my degree at Mount Royal, and that too was a really cool program that taught me, it was the journalism major. So I got my degree in communications. But we learned a lot of like videography and photography. I loved photography, and then also like journalistic writing. And so there's just all these ways to express yourself creatively. And yeah, I definitely felt like I was in my element and I was ready to take that next step, like start doing this full time.
Yeah, and that's I like that you're learning all journalism, writing, all these little aspects because again, there's these things that will help us. We may not think in this certain career path we're going down will help us, and it does, especially as a documentarian. Like you do write scripted stuff, but you also have documentaries, one of which we're going to talk about shortly. And so I think having that journalism background give you this eye that maybe other people wouldn't see when it comes to documentaries.
Definitely. I think, like there's a lot of like research too that goes into like making a film, like not just documentaries, but also narrative. And like you really have to understand, your environment, the world, people. And so like this having that observational kind of like approach to things. I think a lot of journalists have that. And like yeah, to like really sit in the moment and take it in and to be present and to like truly listen, not just be kind of worried about the next thing you have to do. And so and I also love to do research. Like I was just I'm on this project right now, and I have to do a lot of research. And I could just lose myself in hours of like reading research, looking at old photos and starting to build like kind of like world in my mind or really truly understand like a subject and its people. Like yeah, for me, I love it. And so like yeah, there's all these things that journalism school taught me. And just the patience to do that, to sit
Yeah.
down and to like absorb knowledge.
Well, that must help you going back and forth between like scripted and documentary. Like one of your first big breakout films was Indian Giver, and I watched that earlier today as well. Really well done. And so like you when you're doing scripted stuff because you've also Tales from the Res, you're the writer, director, showrunner of a horror comedy anthology series. Like when you're working on scripted stuff, how many times do ideas pop in your head for a documentary, and how many times when you're working on a documentary do script like do you get these ideas going back and forth like, oh, this would be really interesting if I did a scripted version of this, or this would be really good if I kind of focus on this for a documentary?
Yeah, I think that, like the lines are really blurred for me,
Hmm.
and like there's just so much, like stories are really fluid. And I think that, like I'm a very spiritual person, and I think that these like stories have a spirit, and it's almost like they're telling me like how they want to be told, and in the style they want to be told. Like I think even in my documentaries, there's been different styles that I've embraced, and I think that it's not up to me. I feel like
Yeah.
of how they're being told. Like I'm almost being influenced. And when I pray, when I smudge, like Ikstunadops gets moikon, like our prayers are really powerful. And when I pray, I always ask Creator to bless my eyes for what I'm about to see, my ears for what I'm about to hear, and my mouth for what I'm about to say. And that, only Creator's words come out of my mouth. And I think when you kind of ground yourself like that, like it's so like you open up yourself for story.
Yeah.
And so like you really think about directing, it's a real like it really is something to pull something out of thin air and then to set it into motion, and to get all these different collaborators or people to help you, push it forward. And that's really what you're doing. You're almost like a shepherd guiding a flock of sheep, and you're just kind of they kind of stray this way, you kind of bring it back over here. And sometimes you want to stray that way and you keep going that way. And so it's a really beautiful job, and I'm really thankful I get to do it every day.
That's such a great metaphor that I haven't thought of that before, but it is very much as the director, you are kind of a shepherd, and you mentioned collaborating. Like that's such a great sign of a filmmaker or creator creative person is when you can be collaborative. So like if you have the flock going this one way and one seems to be going off this way and you're like, why are you going off this way? But then you're like, oh, I see what's going on over here. Maybe I need to go over there.
Yeah, that's true. And I think sometimes like in a narrative sense, when you're making a fiction film and you're working with actors and you feel like you're not getting a performance, like you have to ask yourself, like, is it like why am I so rigidly holding on to like my idea of what this character is trying to say? Like let's lean into whatever the actor, like maybe that's an intuition that they're following.
Yeah.
Like let's let that creativity kind of flourish. You never know, like you can lead to a great performance, the next take or the next scene, however this character evolved over time. And if you just and that could be true for any kind of collaboration you have on a film set with your cinematographer, your production designer. When you truly empower somebody to make a decision, like you can see that them settle down, their spirit settle down, and they get more confident and composed to make a decision. But if you're constantly barking at them or kind of, like being prickly or rigid, you can see people afraid to make a mistake.
Yeah.
And that's not the kind of like environment that I want to create or work within. And who wants to go to work and feel that every day, So um yeah, I think like how you treat the people you work with really speaks volumes.
Yeah, I've had people I've had a job before where it was like that, or I've had friends and it's literally like Friday night, they're not going to work till Monday, and already Friday night, like they just left work and they're already dreading like I can't I'm like that's not a good sign. Like that's you should be excited to go to work. Like that should be the most like exciting thing. You should be happy about that. But when you're already dreading several days from now going to work, that's not good.
Yeah, definitely.
Need to move on from that. You mentioned something about different like documentary styles, and I think this is a great time to start talking about your film, Siksikakowan, the Blackfoot Man. So great film. I got to watch it. It has won several awards, which we're going to talk about. Very interesting film. I wanted to know before we dive into what it's about. Actually, tell people what this film is about. It's a very unique, interesting look for sure.
Yeah, Siksikakowan is a intimate portrayal of indigenous masculinity on the prairies. And so, through my verite lens, I, explore the lives of Blackfoot Men and boys to my community.
And what made you realize you wanted to tell this story? Because I was reading up about it, and it was very interesting because it was something that you felt doesn't get talked a lot about or shown, and this was just an honest portrayal because it is a documentary.
Yeah, I think growing up in Siksika, like it masculinity like shaped me in a lot of ways, and was always kind of like you know on the peripherals of my life or my consciousness, and it's something that was always on my mind. And I think you know for me, like I was a really sensitive kid growing up, and like that word sensitive, like it comes from the Latin word sincere, the ability to like fully feel all your senses. And when you're like that in an environment where there's um, cows and horses and my uncles and my grandpa and my cousins and everyone kind of like in that kind of upbringing, your senses could be overloaded.
Yeah.
And so, but then you're told the things like cowboy up or man up. And, I think um, like those kind of lessons I learned growing up, they taught me a work ethic that saw me through a lot of like my schooling and my career, but also it also kind of shut down my ability to like feel or to like sit with anxiety, sit with like fear, sit with like um even like happiness. I think sometimes when you really sit down with anxiety, it underneath it is like can be a good emotion, it can be a bad emotion, but you don't know unless you're taught to sit with it. And so I think that when I wanted to make this film, I wanted to explore like yeah, like masculinity and to finally talk about it and to show it and to show other people who are like me. Like I can't be the only person who's sensitive and creative on the prairies. And so um yeah, to go into those moments with that kind of perspective or that kind of like mission, to find these truthful and honest moments. That's what we set out to do. And we never wanted to like project like, a lesson or like a meaning or like, like that a lot of like conventional documentaries do. We just wanted to keep it open ended and for, these men to speak for themselves.
Yeah, and one of the things that I noticed early on in watching this, and I think it's because specifically, like you think of a lot of films on Netflix these days, but there's a lot of documentaries people are so used to, especially when it's people involved. Not so much when it's like animals or something, but when it's people involved, a lot of times it is talking heads and a lot of really like interviews. And you do interview people, but in a very more natural way of just people having conversations. So I was interested why. Like, did you know you never wanted to include like major talking heads, those moments where that person's sitting in that room on that chair, it's just you guys having those conversations? Was that clear to you right away?
Yeah, it's definitely clear right away. I didn't want this to be that kind of documentary. And, I've done stuff like that.
Hmm.
That's set up lights and then you set up, uh, a boom pole or a microphone and like somebody's behind you taking notes. And there's all these kind of external factors. Um, and I didn't want to do that because I think those like a film set or a film crew can take up a lot of space, especially in someone's life. I mean, you're trying to film like intimate portrayals, like, it's really hard to do that when you have four people behind you and then like this, and especially for people who haven't been captured on film a whole lot, like it's a lot of pressure to put on somebody. And for me, it's my everyday life. I know what it is to make a film, but to them, it's not. They're not used to this equipment. Um, and so I think that I wanted to just break that all the way, break down all these conventional ways we make films, even like the idea of B-roll. Like if somebody's talking about um, Mai Tai, and then I go film them in like a sequence of Mai Tai. Yeah, oh, here's a wide shot, here's the close up, here's the cutaways, here's this and that, and I'm gonna cut this together really quick, and it's gonna feel intense. Like just through that process, that becomes my own interpretation of what it means to be a Muay Thai fighter. But let's just keep the camera wide and float around and see what presents itself. And that's what we did. And so like, yeah, and then the interviews, we kind of treated them like candid conversations. Like, there was always constant dialogue between, me and the people in the community. And so, yeah, just when a conversation strikes up, like how it does in real life, um, we just filmed it. And there's sometimes where the camera's pointed at the ground, sometimes where the light wasn't the best or it's a little bit out of focus, but like, like that's the price you pay to put the shoot verite. And, I didn't want it to become more about like the aesthetics
Yeah.
of like, the fancy lighting or really cool shots or sequences. Like I just wanted it to be raw and honest from the very beginning. And so that decision was kind of felt throughout all production. Like we only had, like I was the cinematographer, the sound recordist, the only person
Wow.
on set, and I was on the 90-day production, and so it leaves room for like to explore and to have fun and to play.
Yeah. Well, and you really get to let this style, you get to let the images speak for themselves, and the audience can, either have their own interpretation or they can figure it out themselves, but it's not someone exactly telling them what we're supposed to be feeling. And you do have a couple great shots that or like moments that I love, that I enjoyed that you included in. Like there's the one where the camera's just on the one boy watching TV, and the camera was just placed there, and his friend comes over and is like, "Oh, what's this? Like, oh, why do you have a camera?" And Trevor's here. We're talking about it, and then there's another moment that I enjoy where it was, forget what they were doing, but the kids were all together, and they're like, "Put down the camera and help!" So it just was those moments that I really felt like we're getting a chance to really see that this is your community. This is a homecoming, and it's not an intrusive filmmaker coming in to watch these people, whatever it may be. Whether it's we see documentaries all the time of people going to tribes in Africa, or we have people dealing with grief, and these filmmakers are coming in to help them, like, and just showcase their grief. So just, I think that's what I appreciated about your film, was that it was very much showing, no, this is Trevor's life and his community, and he's a part of it.
Yeah, definitely. And I know those films you're talking about, like people, I think when you're not from that community and then you go and tell their story, like by default, you're dressing them up in a costume,
Mm-hmm.
or you're kind of grasping at, you know, um, low hanging fruit. And I think if you're just on the peripherals of a community, like you're gonna tell stories about like trauma or residential school or like addiction or like this is kind of tired and tried tropes that we've had, portrayed in like films about Native people. And this is like when you really take time and it comes from the inside, you start to see like a deeper humanity. And you start to see like, human beings having a human experience that can be relatable. You can see a father, raising his child and with compassion. And then also like in that same moment, training for Muay Thai, trying to keep fit, and like there's this all the or what it's like to be in the summer and trying to, stay cool, but also have fun with your cousins and catch frogs. Like those are real human
Yeah.
experiences. And so, that was always our plan, and for it to never feel like, like we have to solve all the issues for men.
Right.
And I think that's some of the responses I've gotten from people is that, it's refreshing to watch a film like this. And there's some people who are not from the community of Siksika, and like, they've come and been like, wow, I was expecting to see a film about incarceration or about violence or addiction. And, like, I'm really glad I didn't get to see that. And so that's like some of the feedback I've gotten.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about feedback. This has won multiple awards. It had like sold out screenings. Most recently, it won the top award at the Yorkton Film Festival. And of course, now it's going to be available on NFB's site and YouTube for people to watch. How has it been for you seeing audiences, and again, people who's you said maybe aren't from this community, aren't indigenous, they're watching it and they're connecting with it? Because I mean, especially when it comes to men and feelings and talking, like that's something in 2026 we're still struggling with as a society. So, like, how has it been for you to see how it's been received?
It's been amazing. Like it's been like it's like a feeling I can't really describe. Like I think when you make a film about your community and you spend 90 days making it, and then like or 90 days over the span of 4 years, and then even the editing took like a year. Like it was a long process and a lot of decisions that you have to make as a director, and a lot of vulnerability that's shared, from these men, and then my own vulnerability. So it's like being able to hold like emotional space for everybody, and then to like shepherd this story to the finish line. um and then to watch people like react and engage with it and have questions or come and like see like the laughter and the smiles on their faces, but also like the tears in their eyes. Like it's a cathartic release that I can't really explain, that I feel every time I show it. um yeah, it's a gift that keeps on giving, and so like I'm really happy to that it's had this kind of reception.
Yeah.
'Cause it took a lot of work.
I still can't get over like 90 days shoot. Like, I mean, you must have had so much footage to go through. Like, was when you did it, and then it's like, oh, now it's time for the editing. You're like, oh crap! Like, how long is this film gonna be?
Yeah, it was a lot. There's a lot of footage, and and a lot of like it's like a lot of pieces. It's like looking at a puzzle that's just all on the ground, and
Yeah.
like it's like a thousand piece puzzle. Um, but I'm really grateful that I had like a good editor. His name is Hans Olsen. He's based out of Edmonton, and like early on he was reviewing footage and we're having conversations. And although we had 90 days of footage, we made the decision early on that it was going to be like a 75-minute cut. It ended up being 77 minutes. Um, but we didn't want it to be like a 90-minute film. And I think these kind of verite films that have a lot of like kind of threads or images or moments, if you have too much of that, after a while it starts to um, be less effective. And so when we kind of set the goal of like, okay, 75 minutes, let's work within that.
Hmm.
And then so that's what we did. And then we kind of created these like nests of like, the weight of expectations. Let's draw all the clips and the moments that say that. And we're very thorough. Like Hans and I watched every ounce of footage, every left no stone left unturned. And there's a lot of like, he's a very uh similar mannered person to me. Like we can really sit in silence and watch something and like take notes. And so our first 2 weeks of editing was just watching footage. Um, then we went to work, and then it was a lot of fun to kind of create different like nests and moments and chapters and like move things around. And sometimes things are out of balance, and it's just a matter of moving this little clip to this one. The next thing it just kind of weighed itself and scaled out perfectly. Um, and then after a while, you just kind of have to say that's it, because we can keep editing and editing and editing. But I'm very happy with how it ended up. So yeah.
Yeah, it was again, I loved it, and have to mention, like, I love the juxtaposition of how the movie starts and how it ends, of like the cowboys and riding the animals at the rodeo, and we're doing that, and then it just has this beautiful, the last final shot, just in the field there. I think the sun was setting, and he's just holding the like the bush of like flowers in his, and I just was like, I loved how we bookend that. So bravo on all of it, I have to say again. But that, I really loved that moment at the end. I was like, oh, wow, I see what we did here.
Nice. Yeah, it's one of my favorite shots too. And he's picking sage with my mom. That's my nephew. His name is Colt, and he's picking sage with my mom. And um, and sage for us, Blackfoot, like it cleanses your spirit. Like it takes away all of the bad, energy or emotions. And so, we put that in there very strategically because it's like, for one, it's a really beautiful moment to like be taking this medicine with your grandma at
Yeah.
sunset, in late summer. But also it's a way to like, okay, everything that we've experienced as men, we've wiped it clean. Our spirits are clean and we can start fresh, we can start new.
Um, you mentioned earlier, like at the beginning, coming from storytellers, and I mean, I remember that was one of the first things I learned in school about Indigenous people was that they're amazing storytellers, and you weren't seeing a lot, especially in the 90s and 2000s. We weren't seeing a lot of stuff. So, how important is it for you to continue to tell these stories of your people, your community, your family, um, for Canada, the world, everybody to see?
Yeah, I think like this, that's like I'm very proud and like it's been emotional thinking and talking about my community in Siksika and I grew up there with when I close my eyes and think about it, like I can, I picture like my grandparents, my cousins and uncles and aunts and where the area where I'm from, Crowfoot Creek, I can just see it in my mind so clearly. And also growing up, like I went to school off reserve in a small town called Pisano. And I think that also, I experienced a lot of racism growing up and to kind of always be seen as like this somebody who's gonna steal or somebody who's gonna like be bad. Like when you're told that you're a bad kid after a while, you kind of start to believe it. And I think that like I think in my heart, I always knew that we were like there was much more uh a deeper humanity to our people. And it was always my mission to show that and to pay homage to that and to honor that. And so um I think that yeah, to create films for community is a beautiful thing, and like this act of storytelling, it's the act of gift giving is what it really is.
Yeah.
And when you give a gift to somebody, like you put thought and consideration into it, and you wrap it up, and then you give it to them, and you watch them open. It's the joy. And so let's never forget that when you share a story with somebody, you're giving them a gift. Um, and so yeah, that's my role as a storyteller from Siksika, is to yeah, like to always like stay true to our method of storytelling.
Yeah, and I mean, there's so many stories, and it's great that more. I mean, I talk about this all the time with different filmmakers, whether they're a female, queer, person of color. Like, we don't need to see the same old stories all the time, and so it's nice to see different ones or similar stories, but different people in front of the camera or behind the camera, and it's just we need to let everybody tell their stories because you never know which one's gonna really hit somebody so impactfully.
Yeah, and you never like know what part of the story is gonna like impact somebody, and it's yeah, like I love hearing people come to me after they've watched Siksikakowan and they'll connect to like something like a thunderstorm and what it meant for them and like how beautiful that moment was there to like hear somebody who looks like them read poetry on screen. I think that was like all these kind of offshoot benefits that I didn't really foresee having this kind of impact. And so you never know who's going to take away something from your film. um and yeah, it's you really have to take up like a lot of consideration and empathy and to telling these stories.
Yeah. Okay, so as we start to wrap up here, um I see you're working on a couple more things. You have a couple more things in the pipeline. What can you tell us about some things coming down the line here?
Yeah, so Cody Savard and I, my producer at the NFB, we're making our next documentary. It's called Prairie Chicken. It's another Verite documentary about the chicken dance, which is a popular powwow dance that comes from our people, the Siksika, and it has its roots in one of our ceremonial dances, the Gituki Society. Um, and yeah, and then also writing a narrative feature. It's called Lords of the Plains. It'll be my first narrative feature. It's a sports drama
Oh.
about these two Indian relay racers who shoot to the top of the sport, and at the same time, they're experiencing fame and partying and girls, and they kind of start to lose themselves in that excitement. And at the same time, they're kind of questioning their own sexuality and their feelings towards each other. And so, yeah, we're just finishing up development of that, and we're applying to some production funds, and hopefully we're shooting in the fall of 2027.
That's awesome. I like do you like going back and forth between documentaries and narratives or do you have periods of your time where you're like I just want to write or I just want to shoot documentaries?
Yeah, like I love going back and forth, and like it's keeps things fresh, keeps perspective fresh, and like you're saying, like there's times where I just kind of want to hole up and write and like research and kind of be in my own bubble. There's times where I want to be out in the community with my camera and filming. There's times where I want to be on set with actors. And so like that's one of the beauties of this career is that like every project presents its own like challenges and relationships. And yeah, I think it also brings you closer to your community, like when you tell stories and like be able to like um meet people and like yeah. So I think it's a yeah, a real privilege to go back and forth between documentary and narrative. I don't love, one more than the other. They're both hold a special place in my heart.
They're like your kids, I like them both equally. I don't have a favorite.
Definitely.
I want to ask you real quick too, for anybody listening, because again, talking about documentaries and you had this idea for this particular film that we're talking about today, and it's done really well. If anybody's listening who has an idea for a documentary, but just goes, I don't know. I don't know if people want to hear that story. I don't know if there's anybody who can relate to it or if they're interested. What would you say to those people listening?
Sorry, can you repeat that again? That last part?
Yeah, so if they were, they don't think that they have an idea for a documentary and they just think, I don't think anybody's going to be interested in it. I don't know if it's relevant. I like the idea, but I just don't know. And they're scared to take that leap. What would you say to people who about taking that leap and making that film?
Yeah. Well, I think, those are all normal questions that come up. And for anybody, like everyone kind of has that, those like, doubt. But I think, all those questions you just listed out, they're all like external things that are not in your control. Like, is anyone going to care about this? Like, somebody's going to care about it. Like, there's so much like stories out there, so much niche stories out there. Like, look at something like Hunger Games and what's it called, Squid Games.
Oh yeah.
Like, that's like a Korean like kind of game show horror. Like, that's so niche, but that it blew up. People
Yeah.
loved it. And so like you never know like whatever you're interested in, like somebody else is gonna be interested in it too, and and they might love it and might mean something really important to them. And so I think but I think when you start a project, it's a really bad idea to start it off thinking about what other people are gonna think. Like
Mm.
you really have to hone into like what's in here, what's in your heart, what's in your spirit, what's on your mind. Like it really has to come from this like personal, intimate relationship with yourself and this conversation with yourself. Like that's where the seed should be planted and allowed for it to grow. um and I think that's how it's that is like the foundation for success in film, is when you can have that relationship with yourself and your story. But if you're already thinking about how is it marketable, what's my target audience, and like all these different kind of things, you're just gonna regurgitate some old thing that you watched or some uh franchise comic book
Yeah.
series. But I think there's very in a world where there's very few original ideas anymore, like try to be original and try to like what is your voice and what is your passion. And you really have to live with a story from start to the end. Like it's a long journey and a long process. So you better be in love with it. And it better be your vision and not somebody else's.
Yeah, that's a very good point that I think a lot of filmmakers kind of forgot about is that it is yours. It's your vision and you got to love it the whole time and not kind of Meh, you take over.
Yeah.
It's not what we want. That's not what we want. Well, I'm so excited for more audiences to see this now. Like we've said, sold out screenings, won multiple awards at different film festivals. It's coming for free on NFB's website and on on their YouTube page, so they can easily find it. People are humming and hawing about watching it or not. What are some of the final words you want to say to let people know what they're getting into with this film?
Yeah, I think you're getting into like a film that has a radical approach to documentary filmmaking and is a step towards like indigenous narrative sovereignty. It's the right to own, not just the right to own our stories, but how we tell our stories. That we're at a very exciting and pivotal point where like now that we have the cameras in our hands, we can control how we tell these stories, and we don't have to create them within conventions or popular methodologies. That we can truly just start from scratch and you know um, approach this medium with our own values and our own cultural contexts. And so I think yeah, and I think that's people can expect, and just to feel the kind of raw honesty and quietness of the prairies and the people who were born on the prairies.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, again, congratulations on it. I loved it. I thought it was so good, and I'm so glad so many people can see it. And I know you're so busy, so truly, truly appreciate you taking this time to chat with me today. It means a lot.
Yeah, no, thanks so much, Craig. I think you're a really great interviewer and host, and so thank you for asking all these great questions.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Trevor, for being part of my show, being my guest today, talking about his new film, like we mentioned several times, Siksikakowan, The Blackfoot Man, available for free streaming on National Film Board of Canada's website or their YouTube page. Go check it out. You can also find some of Trevor's other works on online on his YouTube page. Give him a follow as well. Some really cool stuff that we mentioned that he's working on, and great. I enjoyed chatting with him. Such a smart individual. It was a great time, and like I said, I wanted him on the podcast for a while, so I'm glad that this got to work out, and I'm so excited for everybody to go check this out. It is National Indigenous History Month here in Canada, so do yourself a favor. This is a great time to educate yourself. Not only that, it's Pride Month, as I mentioned in the beginning. This is the time you should be listening to everyone's stories throughout the year. But if there's things you're looking for this month, look for these storytellers. These are the voices we need to amplify more than ever. So thank you for being on a guest today, being a guest today on the podcast. Make sure to follow me on social media at PTW Craig, Passing Time with Craig on Facebook and Instagram. Lots of fun stuff planned this month, lots of fun events, and like I said, I've got some new things online for those not in the Calgary area or unable to come to my events that I am working on, so I hope you enjoy them. As always, send me a message if you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, passingtimewithcraig@gmail.com for any inquiries at all, including if you want to sponsor this podcast, I'm cool with that. Other than that, we'll chat soon. Bye.